everybody. This is Alan Peterson with Meet the Thriller Author. And for this show, I have Allie K. Adams. And she is going to, we're going to be talking to her about her books and her writing. And Allie, how are you?
I am fantastic.
I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's much appreciated.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
So before we get going, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, yeah, sure. I am a technical project manager by day, and I am a thriller and suspense author by night. My tagline is, if it doesn't sizzle, it isn't hot enough. And that's also for the spine-tingling thrillers that I write. I currently reside in Montana with my husband and various other wildlife. And the college kids stop by sometimes if they want food, money, anything that, typically goes with that. But for the most part, I reside out of Montana. It's beautiful right now, lots of snow.
And laundry, right?
And laundry, yes, because they were just here for Thanksgiving.
So it should be good for a couple of months then.
Oh, yeah, no kidding, right?
And so how can you describe your books to someone who hasn't read any of your novels?
Well, as one of the, I have USA bestselling author Lucy Monroe as one of my really good friends, and she says one of the taglines that I should be using is, if I'm looking for nonstop heart-racing action and sizzling romance, look no further. Allie K. Adams will take you there and more. So that's one of the things that I would say with my books is, if you always want a happily ever after, but you want a race the entire time for them to get there, these are the books for you.
So you're mixing up with a lot of action. I read a little bit about your first book, and it's like nonstop action.
Yes.
The first chapter. I mean, you start off right off the gate with action.
I really do. And I try to do that because I think of how I, as a reader, would want to interpret a book. And same with TV shows. I usually, when I'm writing, I picture the book in my head as if it was a TV show or a movie. And I don't want to be bored right out of the gate. So I have to start with the action. I usually try to start with, a murder is usually a good thing to start with, or something that leads up to a murder. So you just know something sinister is going to happen off page. So I usually try to do something like that to really grab hold of the attention and hold it the entire book.
And so now this is a different kind of genre within the whole romance because of the thriller component of it, or how is that compared to other romance books?
Well, my thrillers are straight thrillers. There's no romance in them. I do have a female protagonist and her partner, male, but there's no romance between the two of them. It's more of a brother and sister-ish sort of thing. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen later books, but think of it more like a castle. If you're thinking of TV shows, it's very much like they're partners right now, but there's no romance with them. And that's with my thriller. My suspense books are romantic suspense, but my other books are thrillers, just straight thrillers.
And that's like the Trek series?
The Trek series is a romantic suspense.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one that and it always will have a happily ever after. But those ones do have hot romance. They're open door love scenes, as I like to call them. That's the rated G version. But yeah, they're open door love scenes. So you get to walk right in and see exactly what they're doing.
But even in those, there's a lot of thriller type action. So it's like a combination of the two genres.
It really is. Romantic suspense is a very, very hot genre. There's a lot of authors that write in romantic suspense. I don't know why. I always have to end up killing somebody, car chases, shooting them, bleeding, something like that. I tried to write straight romance, and it just did not work for me. I have to kill somebody. So this keeps me out of jail by putting it on a page instead of doing it myself.
Yes, love and bullets.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that will be my new tagline: love and bullets.
Yeah. And were you as a reader, were you a fan of thrillers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those are my favorite. The suspense, and I like to do fun thrillers and fun suspense. And I know that's almost a oxymoron, but I like to do the really fun action, fast action. Think of like the A-Team and Italian Job, those kinds of movies. Mm-hmm. Those are the types of books that my suspense books are, is the really, really fast action, but there's a lot of fun and dialogue and very, very fast back and forth. So that's the kind of stuff I love to watch. Therefore, that's what I like to write. And
what's the latest book on in that series that you have out?
Well, the latest one that I have out is called It Takes Two. And that is about basically three friends that parted their ways after high school, got back together 10 years later at their class reunion because the female of the trio now has a price on her head. She's a really big wig. She's a CEO, and so she's got a price on her head. And the boys just happen to be bodyguards now, working for the Trex agency. And so they are back to protect her in every sense of the word.
What inspired you to write your first book?
Well, you're going to love this story. Okay. So I was like in, I don't know, 10th grade or something. I was in high school sometime, and I read a book and I absolutely hated the ending. The heroine died at the end. And I felt so cheated because I gave so many hours to reading that book. And then they go and kill off the heroine at the end. I was so upset that a couple of my friends said, well, just rewrite the ending. If you're that mad about it, just go rewrite the ending to something you wanted. So I did. I went and rewrote that ending, and I had my friends read it. And they said, oh, well, we like this ending way better. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot for the entire thing. So I wrote my first book when I was in high school, but that's really how I got started, is because I really hated the ending of that one book. And for the life of me, I still can't remember what book that was, but I just remember I hated it.
But you didn't. So that was just between you, for you and your friends. That wasn't published or anything like that.
No, that one wasn't published. Then I used to be a reserve deputy in the Washington State and a member of the search and rescue, and I was so deeply involved in the logistics of search and rescue that I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to give it a hand on trying to do something contemporary, because at the time I was writing historicals and they just weren't working for me. I just wasn't really getting into the books. So I wrote a contemporary that was in search and rescue, basically the main part of it. And that was the book that I shopped around, and no one bought it. So then I thought, well, okay, nobody wanted that. So then I started writing counterterrorism and shopped that book around. Nobody bought it. So I wrote the second book in counterterrorism and shopped that one around. And then a publisher picked it up. So I actually it was the third full-length book that I wrote. And that one was the one that finally got picked up about 5 years after I started writing.
Oh, wow. And are you a hybrid? Are you strictly traditionally published?
I'm strictly indie now. I was hybrid. Yeah, I was hybrid for a while, but honestly, there was nothing that the publishers could do that I couldn't do myself. Mm-hmm. So I just did it myself because I like having that full 70% royalty.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and I also see that I was looking at your website. I mean, you have a lot of books out too. The traditionally publisher probably would be trying to throttle you back on that.
Well, they would. And, the thing is I kind of genre bounced for a while. And then I really found my true calling in suspense and thrillers because they're so tightly knit on the genre. And so for a while I was bouncing around, but I'm pretty happy in my suspense and thriller genres. And so if you look on my website under the catalog, you see all of the different books that I have. I've had some publishers reach out to me asking if I'd be willing to sell them any of my books. And I'm just not. I'm not shopping for a publisher anymore.
That's a nice position to be in, huh?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Well, you probably do, but I mean, that's the nice thing about it is that the tables have shifted so much. 5 years ago, I was trying to, I was begging for an agent to pick me up. I was begging for an editor just to look my way, and going and I was what we called a pitch whore, where every single conference I went to, I would go and sign up for every single agent and editor there was. And so then I would pitch to every single one of them. So thus the nickname of pitch whore. So so that's what I did. And I just kept pitching and it was just, the desperation was dripping on my tone. So I was just begging to be picked up. And I'm so grateful that I turned down the offers that I did get, because now I'm in such a better place with my career.
And you only answer to yourself. Well, your readers.
Exactly. Well, I answer to myself and to my readers. One thing that my readers did tell me is I use the F-bomb a lot in my books. So I'm going to be cleaning that up a little bit because, yeah. And it's like a sailor.
They didn't like that one, huh?
Well, they pointed out, like in my book Rescue Me, which was the first full-length book in the Trek series, that one had 149 F-bombs in 323 pages. So I thought, I might need to tone that back a little bit. So I'm going to be cleaning that up next year. So for anybody listening, trust me, if you download the book right now and you're turned off by the F-bombs, have no fear. A cleaner version is coming next year.
Yeah, you heard them.
I did.
I like how your book starts with that Trek's mission statement. I was looking at one of your books. So it's pretty intriguing. So it's like a privately funded agency acts like a CIA type of FBI type of thing.
Yes, yeah, they're basically the Trek's agency. They find things. That's whether it's they find justice, they find material things, they find a person, they find whatever it is that's been lost. And you'll find throughout the book, they're finding bombs in a building. They're finding justice for somebody else. They're finding a murderer. So it can be any number of things that they're looking for and that they will find. But they do the jobs that the government won't do. And so you can call on Treks for anything and they will find it.
Where do you get your ideas for your books?
Because I have a really twisted imagination. I mean, one of them, I got the idea. I was shopping for purses. Yes, I do shop for purses. So I was shopping for purses one day and somebody said, I overheard a conversation. She puts her hand in a purse and she goes, "Oh, there's something in here." And I immediately thought, "Oh, it's a finger." And then as soon as they do that, the finger's going to come out and then they're going to do the print run on that. And they're going to take a look at the prints and it's going to be some guy that's been counterfeiting and it's in the lining of the purses. And so then that's how I get my ideas, is by one person saying something very innocent and off goes my imagination.
Is that actually made into a book?
I'm trying to remember if that one ever made it into a book or not. But that's just one example that I always remember. The one that that I'm just trying to remember which one it was. One of them was, I have one called Out of Time. And that one, I actually got the idea. It's LARPing. Now, I don't know if you know what LARPing is. It's live action role play.
Okay, no, I wasn't familiar with that one.
Okay, so live action role play is really big gaming, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. That's LARPing, but that's a board game, LARP. You could do full-on LARPing. Renaissance fairs, where people will dress up like it was in the 1200s. Mm-hmm. That's LARPing. They're live action role playing. They are somebody else and they are fully into that character. And I can't remember what I was watching. I think I was watching an episode of Supernatural because I love that show. And I was thinking, what would be really cool is if somebody was killing off LARPers and then taking their place and trying to get to the next phase, because you could get into these festivals that you could win hundreds of thousands of dollars in these games. And so I thought, okay, there's going to be somebody killing off these gamers for prize money, but it's part of the game that you die and disappear. I use air quotes, so they can't tell if they're really dead or not. And it was this big mystery that they had to unravel. And that is in one of my books. And I got that just by watching a TV show, because I thought, it'd be a lot more fun if we did it this way instead. So
when you get one of these ideas, do you jot it down, or do you record it on your phone, or?
No, I really wish I would write them down. I would probably have a lot better luck at remembering them if I would write them down. That's the biggest lie I tell myself is, I'll remember that. And I never do.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. You get a great idea and you're all excited and then you forget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's my big thing is I've probably come up with hundreds and hundreds of really cool ideas. I forget them. So I've got 10 out of 100. I'm very bad odds.
And who are some of the writers that you were a fan of that influenced you?
Well, there's a couple of different ones. One of my big influences early on was Linda Leal Miller. She was one of the reasons why I got started. I met her in New York, and I just adored her. She's just such a wonderful lady. And but she was one of the very first romance books I'd ever read. And so that was something that, and I look back at it now and it was from the 80s or something. And, the 80s books and the now books are so wildly different, but it was still that one sticks with me. And then my big influence now is Tess Gerritsen. And Tess Gerritsen, for people that don't know, she's the one that created the Rizzoli and Isles series. The books are very different than the TV show, mind you. But and Tess is wonderful too. I met her like 2 or 3 years ago, but I've decided that I want to be Tess Gerritsen if I ever grow up. She is so wonderful and just really, really supportive. But she is probably my biggest influence right now is Tess Gerritsen.
Yeah, she's great. I've read a couple of her books, those Rizzoli and Isles, and totally different from the show.
Oh, they really are. And so people that read the book are disappointed because they think that the characters are going to be just like they are. The 2 lead characters are going to be BFFs, and they're really not in the books. Mm-hmm. But she's just the epitome of what I really want to be. She started in romance, and I started in romance. So I see the parallel, and I hope that the parallel continues, because then she moved over to straight thrillers. And that's the direction that I'm heading, is straight thrillers or just a touch of romance in the thrillers.
Oh, I didn't realize that she wrote romance in the past.
Yeah, she did. I think she wrote for Harlequin. So if you look at some of her older books, like Keeper of the Bride is one of her older ones, and some of her older books from like the 80s and maybe early 90s, I think they were Harlequin.
Do you work on more than one series at one time, or are you just focusing right now on your thrillers?
I have to write more than once. I can't focus enough to just stay in one at a time. What I typically do is I write in an average of 3 at a time, depending on where my mood is. If I want to be in a dark mood, then I definitely write in my thriller. If I want to be playful, I'll write in my suspense. And if I want to be snarky, and that does happen, I want to be snarky, I have a new adult suspense and I want to be in that one too. And then I'll do some snark in that one, because all of my heroines are very snarky.
So even though if you're different genres, though, you're still kind of with suspense and
yes,
yeah. Okay.
All of them are. I can't get away from that. I really tried. I mean, one of my first new adults, it's called Grooming the Player. It's all about her turning him into the ultimate, playing the field kind of player. And I couldn't not end up having somebody in a fire and somebody getting shot at. And no matter how much I try, I can't get away from putting people in danger. So I've stopped fighting it. I just let it go.
Have your characters, are they influenced at all by you? Any of your personality traits make it into the characters that you write?
I think every one of my heroines has something about me. I'm a ginger. And so some of them will have red hair. They always have a sense of snarkiness about them. One of them is a technician, because I'm a techie. So a couple of them are ultimate geeks. One of the heroine in, I think it was in Seek and Destroy, she was a hacker. I'm not giving anything up on that one, but she was a hacker and wore glasses and was still, all of them are, I don't want to say full figured, but none of them are real skinny. And so they all have curves. And there's always something. In Rescue Me, my heroine drove a yellow Xterra, and for 10 years I drove a yellow Xterra. And so there's always something, at least one thing, but definitely more than one, most of the books.
The Trek series, those books usually take place like all over the world, or is it in one location?
It seems to happen mostly in Seattle. And I think that's because I grew up in Seattle. So that's what I'm very familiar with. I have had them happen in Bogota, Colombia. I have had them happen in Tahiti, but the majority of them are in Seattle. I did have one happen in Montana, but again, the majority of them in Seattle, because I'm using Seattle as a central hub. You've got the port right there. The cruise ships come in. It is a major international airport, so it really fits nicely for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and it must be nice when you're writing, because you know the area, and so it cuts down on the research.
Oh, it really does. But the nice thing about it is then I can take trips over to Seattle and write them off.
All right, there you go. That's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah, I should write a series where my mom lives, then I can write those trips off.
Well, see, there you go. That's what I kept, and I actually did. I wrote one that involved a cruise ship, and so I took a cruise just to make sure I got all the logistics right.
I have some family in Yakima, Seattle, Yakima, Washington. That name just cracks me up.
Oh, Yakima. Well, Yakima's not too far from Walla Walla, and you've got all kinds of weird names up there.
Oh, yeah.
Go on and on about weird names in Washington.
Okay, Allie, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and for taking time to talk to us about your books and your stories and your writing world. Very much appreciated.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. You can visit our site at get.thrillingreads.com/podcast for more information on our podcasts. And you can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcatcher, like iTunes, the most popular one, of course. Just search for Meet the Thriller Author and you'll find me there. And I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/Meet Thriller Author. Love to hear from you. Love to hear your comments and your feedbacks on the shows. And I'll have a new podcast, a new interview with a thriller author. They'll be posting them every Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe. And please visit my author website at alanpeterson.com.